Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. Today's video, Verasity, VRA on the exchange. Of course, one of our favourite bags here at the Whales of Wall Street. So guys, just a very brief recap on the things upcoming, or supposedly upcoming, with Verasity. And we'll then dive into the chart to see what's going on. It's been a very fantastic ride for Verasity up until the sort of last week or so. We'll take a look at that in more detail, but for now, let's jump straight into this, guys. So what I've got in front of us is pretty much the roadmap off the Verasity website. I mentioned in previous videos, I very much like the tick box exercises as you were. But look, Q4 is obviously still in fruition. We're not quite in the middle of November just yet. But there's a few things here. I'm not sure if they're ticking these off as they go along or if they just wait till the end of the quarter. I'm not quite sure. But at this stage, there's not a lot kind of being ticked off here. But I wanted to bring to the forefront of our minds just a reminder of a couple of the things that are of really great interest to me, particularly. And I'm sure many of you out there as well. So, of course, recently we kind of covered that subject of Verasity with their proof of view mechanism within NFTs. So they have a multitude of patents going through, or have done so in the past already. So we had the proof of view mechanism around sort of advertising, and what we meant by that is essentially verifying ad views. And this is very much I guess supporting the likes of YouTube and Vimeo and all these big massive platforms, the back end of verifying the views. So when we're talking about ad spend, of course, like what you don't want is loads of fraudulent activity and mistaken views, all these kind of things, which can ultimately lose these companies a lot of money. Now you might think that these companies make so much money, what's the problem? But they employ people, their business at the end of the day, they are where they are because of hard work and clever people, basically. But of course, a lot of ad spend is essentially not necessarily manipulated, but it's certainly something that affects profit and loss in all these kind of businesses. And as well as people who like streaming and stuff, it works both ways. So that was kind of the mechanism for viewership in terms of streaming and things like that. But they also had the proof of view mechanism for NFTs, and that meant like the verification process using blockchain smart contracts and all the other really cool funky stuff through blockchain technology to ensure that when they kind of integrate this with other platforms as well as their own, which we'll go into in a second, that you as a consumer or someone who's buying, and may I just remind you that NFTs aren't just about collectibles and pieces of art and things like this. In time, and if not already now, to be fair, in some cases, NFTs being non-fungible tokens, it means pretty much anything that has a value that is not like pegged to a ratio of 1-to-1, as it were, can be classed as an NFT. It's essentially like a digitalized aspect of property, if you like, whether that be a skin in a game or a perhaps an item. But it can also lead eventually to things like cars, houses, all these crazy things. And there are some projects out there like Boson Protocol that are really sort of investing time and effort into the infrastructure of kind of integrating NFTs between the virtual world or the metaverse world and the real world. So you can think of like the Ready Player One scenario where he goes and buys the jacket, the suit thing in the virtual world, and he's like, yeah, I'll grab that box, and that's an NFT. He literally picks it up, he's purchased it with his currency tokens in the game, and then the next day, or whether it's the same day, I don't know in the future whether they have like maybe hour deliveries or something, who knows, but it arrives at his caravan thing and he puts the suit on, and that's taking that virtual item to a real world item. So I just want to be clear on that, because it is that element potentially as well in the future that this could really take off massively. But for now, it's the NFT aspect of it. So when you're buying an NFT, you don't necessarily always know the legitimacy of it, right? Of course, if you buy it from a renowned sort of project, like I bought my first ever NFT yesterday through Proton. Great wallet. We've done loads of videos, go and check them out. But the really cool thing is, like, I feel that's a reliable source, but there's a lot of people that maybe buy secondhand ones, and we've seen in previous videos the cost, or certainly maybe what would be the word, like the revenue market value of used goods, whether that be in gaming or virtual stuff like that, is billions of dollars. Okay, so when we talk about digital assets like this, and let's say I'm like, oh, I'm bored of this item now, or this piece of art, I want to sell it. You'd hopefully go onto a reliable source and exchange it, or sell it, or it gets melted if you're using things like Engine and recreate to something else. But in the principle of that, if you're doing it through blockchain in a kind of different way, and you're the end user trying to buy it, you obviously want to make sure that you're not wasting your money, and it's definitely legitimate, and the historic document or documentation's there through blockchain and stuff. So Veracity's protocol in the background is to help with that and ensure that we're not stung, there's no manipulation, fraudulent activity, and all this kind of stuff. So what's really interesting, of course, in Q4 for these guys is the NFT marketplace that they are trying to bring to the table. Now, I think it's absolutely fantastic, kind of really clever actually, and intuitive, in the sense that they already know about these proof of view mechanisms, but actually there's an argument to say, like, as much as I know many of the other ones are reliable, of course, but when you've got a backing of a patent, almost like that confidence element as a buyer, and Veracity can produce that documentation, and also you can see it in blockchain, you can see it like in open sort of public data, basically, that your NFT that you're purchasing is 150% secure and reliable and verified by Veracity. And I think that's fantastic what they've done there. And of course, bringing their own marketplace out is kind of genius. Obviously, been on the card for ages. It's not something they just thought out of yesterday, of course. But I think it's going to be really successful. And I can imagine, like, when this all launches, Veracity is going to absolutely fly to another level in the price of the chart and everything, in my opinion. Because NFTs is a big thing right now, and the scalability of it is phenomenal. And of course they've got loads of other stuff here in Q4, but I'm really interested to see the development of this marketplace. I haven't seen too much more news about it since kind of a while back, really. So it'd be really good if they could, hopefully, whether they're watching this video, or I'll tweet them in a bit and say, like, hey guys, what's the progress of the NFT marketplace? Not expecting full answers, just let us know how it's going. Is it 50% done, 90% done, who knows? But I'm really excited to see that. And of course they're doing a load of stuff around the esports elements, the tournaments, the streaming, the viewerships, and all that cool stuff as well. So there's loads going on really in the background for Veracity. I do think, I've put those price predictions out there of like 21 cents or so. I'm sticking by that. A lot of people are saying 50 cents, $1. That could well be possible as well. But I just generally think like Q4 is going to be phenomenal for them. And there's loads of stuff in here about the streaming aspects within enterprise video platforms. So really looking forward to seeing all that integrated as well. And there was talk a while back from some of the founders and people within talking about a tier 1 exchange listing. Now it'd be really interesting to see who that is. Do we think it's Binance or another one, Huobi, however you say it? I'll get it right one day. But all of that's to come. But right now the price is strong. We'll go into the chart more in a second, of course. As I said, I'm not just going to waffle on forever. But I guess like it's really interesting from that aspect. And particularly for the NFTs, like I said, being very popular right now. But perpetual licenses essentially becoming a standard in terms of like major game publications and stuff like that. It's really important to have this kind of mechanism in there for like to defraud essentially. So without any of the protocol standards, it's not great, and that's something that Veracity is trying to bring to the table. So very much excited for the outcome of Veracity in this year and for the years to come as well. Like, of course, I'm holding for the long-term majority of them, but I'm definitely obviously going to take some advantage of some key areas in this run. I've already done so in terms of the big sell-off, which we'll go back into in the chart in a second. If you haven't watched the previous videos, I'll explain that a bit more. But there's big things to come, guys. And of course as well, from the esports, just before we go into the chart, they're talking about here the opposing schools of thought on NFTs and esports. Now, we cover this in another video actually, around gaming and everything. UOS Ultra, absolutely brilliant platform. And it was their conversation was around Steam as well. So Steam have this really weird regulation and rule in their documentation in the background for onboarding application. And point number 13, what you shouldn't publish on Steam. So Steam, by the way, is like a gaming system. You can download old games or new games via PC. Essentially, it's a really cool little marketplace, but they're not allowing applications built on blockchain technology that issue or allow exchange of cryptocurrencies or NFTs. Now, I kind of get partially the protection element of that, because they may not want to integrate things that involve play to earn or this opportunity of gambling or this, that, and the other. So I kind of get it, but equally, like, I think it's a bit backwards, because there's a lot of projects out there, like we mentioned with Ultra. There's a multitude of them out there developing blockchain games and for the metaverse and everything like this. These guys are going to fall behind until they open it up. But the reason I've highlighted this particularly for this video is because Verasity essentially has the protocol mechanism and the offering of a service to remove the concern from this for Steam. So hopefully one day maybe Verasity will partner with Steam and say, look, do you know what? You don't need to worry anymore. We understood your problems or thoughts around cryptos and NFTs being used, maybe to avoid like malicious activity or fraudulent activity. You don't need to worry about it. Verasity is here. So that's why I thought I'd bring it to take, because I thought it was an interesting take on the esports and the gaming aspect. And it doesn't stop there. Of course, like animation, modeling, all these kind of things can be essentially put onto blockchain, secured, data driven, and also fairly distributed in terms of fees and funds for the people developing all these things. That's the important thing. That's why I love the project like Ultra, and that's why I love Verasity, because it's about improving the world, making it fairer, more secure, and more essentially open-minded. So I hope you found that interesting, guys. We're going to jump into the chart now, so make sure you smash that like button if you like what you're hearing or seeing, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and welcome aboard to the new viewers here that we have today. So guys, currently floating around 6.4 cents. I was mentioning about a moment ago, I did sell some up here in these top regions towards that almost very close to 9 cents. So I think mine were just under the 8.7 cents mark. We did show in previous videos opportunities that you could buy, and I think we hit 2 on the way down so far. I hadn't really plugged any more in at lower regions because I kind of in my mind had the anticipation that we might start floating back up. Now, if you remember in one of the previous videos, we did mention that this area down here, for example, where we had the previous high of 0.056 on the 17th of April, since that time we had the big dip and correction. We've had a very nice tail up. But since that point, arguably, there's not been really many areas to kind of focus on to essentially promote the idea that we've got real support mechanism here. So we had this big tail up, understandably great things going on with Verasity and organic growth in general as well. But now we're seeing the effect of this big rise, and I will reiterate, I've just drawn it on the right hand side here. From this point here, on the 20th of July, we've risen 1,153% up to this recent top high on the 31st of October and the 1st of October as well. That is mega, absolutely mega. We're going to the indicators in a bit more detail in a second anyway, but I thought I'd throw that out there. So if you remember, maybe not the last video, but the video before that, I made a point that there is no reason why we might not come down to this area here. Okay, so we were in this like big price discovery mode. We hit our ceiling up here near enough the 9 cent mark, and we've come down. We haven't done it parabolically, and I like the idea of this because it's really testing different grounds here. So we're currently floating around arguably on this very nice resistance part here, which indicates these levels that we've seen sort of through mid-October and towards the beginning parts of October. So we're very much matching that position right now in the last 2 days in the touchdowns. Now it's clear that at the moment we're seeing, if you look at the top here, you can see the lows hitting arguably around that sort of just above 6 cent mark. Okay, so, and that's the same for today. So clearly there's enough momentum behind this and volume in the back end, and people trying to keep this afloat to keep pushing this up. Now that could get broken probably in the next couple of days, in my opinion, where we may come down and start testing the the upper regions of the 5 cents. Could be touching around these points here, even down at the 5 cent level, and that puts us in line with these areas here. So for those that don't see what I'm perhaps talking about clearly, I'm just going to draw in this area with a rectangle here as well. So what I meant by this is we could have a dip down, arguably just under that 6 cent mark, maybe around here, and then we may come down to a lower region, potentially, not immediately, but over a period of time, down to that lower region of the 5 cents as well, touching back on this previous resistance we had coming up, as we said, in April. Again, around this area, lots of traction and movement around here, but I think that's feasible, and that's not a bad thing, because we need to find a real mechanism support behind Verasity. And once again, it's an opportunity for those that were up here and going, oh, I wish I got Verasity earlier. Guys, the chances are coming. I always say, like, that dollar cost averaging aspect, DCA, of taking profits along the way, but also having a strategy on the way down as well, if that's your thing. Some people just holding no matter what. Some people do daily trades, hourly trades, whatever. But for those that are like me in that sense, that not necessarily know exactly what you're doing, because it's of course some things are just unpredictable, and this is not financial advice obviously, but my mechanism is to take profits along the way and have a simple or similar structure on the way down as well, just so I don't have to keep putting my own capital in all the time. And don't get greedy, don't get stupid with it. Really think about your strategy on that aspect as well. There arguably is no kind of real right or wrong. You just got to try and sort of anticipate what's right for you, what's right based on your algorithm of movements and the prices that you're purchasing in originally, and the sell points, the gain mechanism in your mind. What do you want to achieve? So just think about those things. But that's where I'm going to be planting some of my remaining USDT that I had from Verasity in the past. I'm going to put some at that top level around the top of 5 cents, and also at the lower regions of 5 cents, maybe around that 5.3 mark, because I do think it could be tested. Okay, it's not about hype here all the time. I'm trying to be realistic in the sense that there's opportunity. And to be fair, like me personally, I wouldn't be angry at getting them right now. You're minimizing the risk arguably, but yeah, for me, I'll just be competitive in my mind. You know what I mean? Like I'd love to just grab these, and if it doesn't happen, or if that one happens, great. If this one doesn't happen, I'm not fussed, because I've made some great profit off Verasity, and that's what it's about. Don't invest in what you can don't invest what you can't afford to lose, if that makes sense. But equally on the other side as well, be clever with that too. And the other reasons why I'm drawing this area in, if you look here on the MACD, it's in a bit of a bearish mood still. The gap is widening, so that means to me, or indicates to me, that we're not finished with this kind of correction, as it were. We're very much probably still in the middle region of the wave before we start calming it down, and then seeing kind of like what we saw here, but it's obviously a bit different. It's a bit harder, a bit of a stronger sell-off this last week or so. The RSI came down yesterday to around 44. In my opinion, that's not low enough. It's not low enough in my mind. I would like to see that personally, because mine's set at 14 days. You can structure it however you want, but for me, 14 days, because I tend to do those trades in those kind of areas. So if you actually look back at this sort of 2 week ago period, I can go, right, okay, this is my moving down element. But if I was hitting, like, say, let's just use an example. Okay, so let's say like these areas around here, 28th, 29th of October, you're at the high end, right, around 76. I usually have a rule of thumb as a generic level on the RSI of a 14-day is 70-40. So if I'm buying down at 40 and I'm selling at 70, I know I've got a really good structure there of taking out initial investment, or rehabilitating that investment, original investment. And then if it goes higher, taking it in incremental values above that, say 75, 80, whatever, as well as, of course, general price points. But on the way down, is this, it's the same principle for me. I'm like, okay, well, I sold up around these regions, and of course, like, do the maths. Obviously, if that was 80 and we say 40, you're essentially doubling that capacity, right? So that's what I mean by that. Hopefully you're understanding, and let us know in the comments below if you need any more explanation on that kind of thing. But this is what I do personally. It's not financial advice, obviously, but this is what I do, and it works most of the time. So I would like to think that that would come a bit lower, maybe structuring around that 38 mark, possibly. But it really depends on the strength of this 6 cent support, because what can happen quite quickly in a day or two really is this support area around 6. If we get that over a few days period, we may get some sideways action like this. Then it's critical on maybe the 3rd or 4th day to decide whether we dip back down further or we have strength to push that up. And it's all about timing of other things as well, of course, like Bitcoin and other chart movements, as well as Veracity's development and adoption, because it could turn around tomorrow and go, hey guys, next week we're announcing the NFTs, and everything goes, oh wow, amazing, jump in, great price. So that's what I mean. So there's those few elements to look at on the histograms. I'm just going to pull that up a bit more just so you can see it in a bit more detail. So yeah, I'm intrigued to see if that zips down a bit more. It's kind of like maybe doing something like this and then maybe a bit of a trace down. Would it come down to 35? Possibly. But yeah, I'm hoping that this may be like the mid ground of the selling or the overselling aspect right now before we start tailing it back a bit with a bit more strength. But that kind of move almost reflects the shape that you might see on the chart as well, in this kind of like looped fashion. Yeah, so it's not going to, you're going to see like major drop in the next day or two. It's going to be like a nice gradual movement, bit of support levels down a bit, and then testing its ground, like I said, around this area, based around here and in April, before it can start going, yep, we're happy here, let's go. And one last observation, guys, hopefully I'm not boring you to death, but this is always an interesting one to look at. So generally speaking, when you've hit top levels, you tend to see between like 30 and 70, sometimes higher, but usually between 30 and 70% reductions, 50% being, you know, a relatively kind of modest level to be coming down to. So at the moment, we're sort of from that top at 30. So if I was to say that I was to come back down to maybe 50, I think that's quite extravagant. But I think there's a lot of belief in Veracity right now. But if you look down to this lower point of 5 cents that I've already mentioned, I don't think 40% is that bad, really, over such a long period of time. And we will see similar movements up, as we just mentioned, even from those lower regions of 1,000%. Even in this short term, it's massively up as well. So it's really interesting, guys. But I believe in Veracity, both short term and long term. We're just phasing off a bit of the great movement that we had. It's natural. Do not panic. Do not worry. The roadmap's looking really cool. We're 14% down on the week on the indicator. You can see on the right hand side here. That's understandable. We're just about slightly up on the month, but look at those top figures down there, guys. 14,000% up year to date. Unreal. I still haven't got around to putting everyone's prices on here, and I'm making it my mission this Saturday to spend an hour or so putting everyone's price predictions from the last few videos. Make sure you put yours in the below. So what we're doing here, whoever's closest for the year-end price prediction will be getting a ledger from myself. I might sign it if I'm that popular at that point in time. Do let me know if you would like a signed boxed ledger, albeit I can't unwrap it because that's the whole point. You buy it off ledger to make sure it's secure and not, whatever. So guys, we're going to wrap that up there. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next Veracity video. And hopefully one day we'll have an update on this NFT marketplace from them. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.